Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I'll Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today, welcome to another edition of Happy Hour. As always, if you are drinking or whatever you're doing, please do so responsibly. Are you sipping on anything, Samantha?
I am sticking with my water because I have decided I've been dehydrated and need more of that in my life. Hydration, not dehydration.
Yeah, I was, I don't know, listeners, if you've heard about this, but the city of Atlanta had a major water issue, a lot of water main breaks, and I was in it. And it was funny because I have so many issues at my apartment, which, by the way, I need to update you, Samantha, on my car drama because there is more.
What?
There is more. But I thought it was just my apartment breaking down again, and it turns out it was like a citywide issue. And
you're like, okay,
I went to the store to get water, and there was no water. So I'm recovering because I drink a lot of water. And so to not have it, oof. But I also went home that weekend. That was the same weekend I went home. So I missed like the good chunk of it. But anyway, that being said, I'm drinking wine.
Nice.
Yes. When there's no water, you go for the wine, I guess. So today for the happy hour, since it is Pride Month, and I have been thinking about a lot of things around that lately. I mentioned something in our recent Feminist Around the World episode that we did, which was on me, and I was very shy and embarrassed.
But did great.
Oh, thanks. But one thing I mentioned in there is something I wanted to come back and talk about. And, actually, there are a couple things. There are a couple things I want to revisit. One is that I said in there that I feel really settled, which I do. But I feel like one of the issues I'm running into now is other people don't feel settled with me. And so they're like embarrassed for me, or they feel like they have to explain me. And I'm good. You don't have to. We don't have to talk about it. It's all right. So that is something I've run into a couple of times. And most of the time it's really sweet. Like it's like genuinely coming from a good place. But sometimes I'm like, no, don't worry about it. You don't have to do that. And also when I was talking in there about like the kind of head turn people do to me now, I feel like this is something like a lot of people experience of like marginalized communities. If you're feminist, people know you're feminist, the head turn. I think what's interesting to me about this is that I was like pro gay rights, but now people know I'm gay. And so it's sort of like it's just a difference. It's just a little bit of a difference that I'm having to adjust to. But one of the things I mentioned in there in passing, but I really did want to come back and talk about, is this thing that I mentioned about gay animals, Samantha.
Right.
See? Because there was this documentary that came out, and conservatives were up in arms about it, about how it was propaganda. Again, I have not seen it. I can't speak to it. But I can tell you that I have numerous memories of people telling me the animal kingdom doesn't have queer animals. There are no gay animals. Therefore, humans can't be gay. It's like the natural order is that it's heterosexual and everything else is deviant because we can look to the animal kingdom and look, they're not having gay sex. Well, it turns out they are. But the thing is, like, I also, even if that wasn't the case, I just don't appreciate the comparison.
The weird comparison in general. Like, but why?
Animals do a lot of things people don't do.
Right.
The like animal kingdom is weird, wild, fascinating, terrifying. And a lot of it is just not stuff that humans do.
Right.
And so I don't think that should necessarily be your reasoning when you're like, oh, you can't be gay because, listen, the animals I've done all my research and I've never found a gay animal, which you definitely haven't. You did no research.
There was no research to be had there. You just want to pretend.
No, and that does come up in a lot of things. Like, I know we've all experienced this in one way or another, where people will use examples from the animal kingdom to make some kind of point about how women are weaker, for example.
Right.
When again, as you and I talked about, there's a lot of instances in the animal kingdom, if we're going to go down that path, of that not being the case.
That's not true.
Yes. And I did get a kick out of, I know I wrote about this in our book. I've mentioned it before. But one of the first times I heard the term asexual was in the 1998 film Godzilla. And recently I watched the new movie, not a sponsor, Under Paris.
Mm.
And spoilers, I guess. The shark can reproduce without a male.
Oh, this is the one you're like, it's actually pretty good.
I liked it. I really liked it. It's really interesting given the Olympics are coming up and everything that's going on with that. But I was kind of watching it like, well, don't need a man according to this if I'm looking to the animal kingdom.
Right. Based on this, I'm good.
Yeah. But it's interesting how prevalent that response has been. And also, like, even my mom, she asked me about it because she was like, a lot of her conservative friends will say that. And she was like kind of confused by it. And I was like, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
I mean, maybe animals, it sounds like, they do get up to all kinds of stuff. But even if they didn't, I just don't think this is the conversation that we should be having.
Right.
It's fascinating to me that how many people like to do that. And it does go back to so many of those kind of like natural order things. But when you break down those natural order things, so many often they are constructed, like social order things. Like I feel like the same people would make the same argument about like the woman should stay home and take care of the kids, and the man should go out in this very heteronormative way because that's the natural order, when that's not the case. And even like looking into humanity, that's not the case everywhere and hasn't been the case everywhere. It's just that people like to make that argument of this is the way it should be based on nature. Like, this is just how we are. And it's a strange argument to have with someone because, yes, usually they have not, they're not scientists. They haven't really done any of the research around that. If they see things that contradict their point, then they ignore it. But also, yeah, I kind of don't want to be arguing with you about like how dogs have sex. Like, that's just not the life I want to lead.
Right. Also talking about how like some male species eat the offspring. Like, what? Right. Where are we going with this, bro? Like,
I just don't think this is I don't think this is helpful.
Right.
And it's just, yeah. It's strange because I feel like some people in this case, being the people making that argument, like being compared to animals or like in nature. But so many times I just have these questions for you about, well, a lot of animals don't live in your air-conditioned house with the food you buy from the store. Like,
they don't have opposable thumbs.
Yeah. Like, I don't think we can carry this out, the way that you want to carry it out. But that kind of goes back to also this thing about kind of cosplaying. We talked about this with Bridget briefly about kind of cosplaying as the farmer or the person who can live off the land when it comes to trad wives or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When that's a really romanticized Like they have people helping them. They do have a
Right.
job. They have all of these other things. So I feel like the comparison to, well, look how this animal did it. You're not that animal.
They don't believe in the conception of God and Jesus. Like they don't worship anywhere. They don't, like, for those who are conservative churches who really want to go this route, and you're like, well, you want to take this picture of what you've seen in the Bible where the sheep and all these animals bow, quote unquote, to Jesus. That's not a thing. Like that's a art piece. And as much as you want to pretend like they definitely, you can't see whether or not they actually have whatever you think is a soul, spiritual aspect of them. Like that's not necessarily part of their thing. They don't go and build churches and then get money and then try to build more onto the church. So this is like a weird flex for you to be like, this is the standard of humanity.
Yeah.
When they're not humans.
Yeah. And it's also just, it goes back to the point we've made several times, because I feel like the argument underlying it is both like this is natural, the natural thing, which again does ignore that animals do engage in gay activity, but also that sex is for reproduction, which we know even outside of the queer community is not the case. There are multiple reasons why that is not the case. That to me just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because people have sex. If you wanted to have a baby every time you had sex, like, I can't even fathom.
Right.
Either you're not having that much sex,
right,
or you're having way too many kids. I don't know.
Right.
So the argument just doesn't work for me. But I'm telling you, I come across this a surprising amount, and I just can't get them to see past that.
Right. And the level of, like, again, we have people who are not able to conceive, whether it's due to fertility issues or things like that, or whether it's because they're getting older and fertility issues, or they just have, like, it's just not a possible thing. Are they also forbidden forever from sex? Not sex, just also not being married. Not like, if that's not allowed for them, like they are now ostracized from that part of the livelihood, then, you know, shouldn't we have other conversations about this? Because again, that doesn't make sense. Also, reminder, we should all be naked, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
which comes into a whole different conversation because they also oppose that. They're like, put on more clothes, damn it.
Well, and again, I'm thinking of a specific group of people here. They also don't believe in evolution, which makes sense given.
Sure.
But if you're thinking more like animals, but you're also saying we're not
anything like we are higher beings.
Yeah, it's just the level of dissonance I don't understand. And also I feel a lot of people using this argument use it for, well, that's why, you know, boys will be boys because it's in their nature. So it is almost a strange card of saying, well, this is why men want sex so much, need sex so much in some cases. It's like their animal nature. And women don't, which is also not true. But they're like using that mindset to justify that as well.
Right. But also, for that to be justified, the usage of medication to help these men who should be this virile, whatever, whatnot, because they can't do it naturally, is also against all the rest of this conversation, which they are like, they never ever really complain about and are like, yeah, absolutely, that should be a part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I just have so many. I know no one here is surprised. I'm not surprised either, but it's just so frustrating at like all of the hypocrisy I hear when I hear this based on other things that they say. And it is true that nature is amazing. It does have examples of all kinds of queer behavior. And I think that's really cool. I think we can acknowledge that and not use it to justify the existence of that in humans.
Right. There's so many things to be said about why they really, really oppose something, and they need to find reasons other than the fact that it disrupts their belief system in a way that says that they are not the moral, all-out being that gets to rule on right and wrong. Like, it's just this whole level of like, okay, this allows me to be judgmental in a way that I can say is science, but it's not science.
Right. And if you give them the science, then they don't want it. They don't believe it. Exactly. Oh. I'm sorry if this was a bit of a mess, listeners. My thoughts are all over the place with it because I just can't. Every time I try to like figure out what they're thinking on one thing, again, I'm actually thinking of a very specific group of people in my life.
Yeah.
Then they do something, and I'm like, but don't you see that I can't argue with you,
Right?
Because it doesn't. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense.
The hypocrisies, and I think it's just again like the black and white that they live in that doesn't exist, that never existed, and the realizing that what they have learned and what they have tried to live their life by, or what they think they need to live their life by, when it gets shaken and there's a hole or any of that, then they double down in a way that they are unable to have any alternate conversation or any other way of listening or hearing or thinking, because they need to just find what they need to back up their own conversations or own beliefs without actually looking for it. Like, they just want someone to validate them. And then if someone lives in a lifestyle or something is disproven, then they have to find a way to block that out completely to protect themselves from being wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot too, about there's some people that it doesn't matter. Like, you're never going to change your mind.
Right.
And it's sad because you want to, or like you don't want to give up on them completely, but you're just there. It's almost like a value they've chosen is, I will never, ever change this.
Right.
And so.
And they would rather lose someone that was like someone, I'm just thinking in general with families, like they would rather lose someone than to backtrack and think about the actual reality behind the things that they say or think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope this made sense.
I think it fit the narrative pretty well. Like, because it's baffling. Like the reasoning, the conversations, the rationalization, the judgment. I think it's chaotic in general. So this is the best you can do and try to feel like, what?
Yeah, because I was just trying to keep track of like their thoughts, and I couldn't. Like, wait, no. Okay. What?
What? Okay.
Oh,
what?
Okay. Well, listeners, if any of you have any thoughts about this, if you have your favorite queer behavior in an animal, I actually do really like that stuff. I just don't think it should be like what we turn to
right
for humanity, but I do like that stuff. Yeah, please write in and let us know. You can email us at stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter @momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok @stuffInevertoldYou. Also, yes, we are doing our Sex and the City watch party with a listener. So write in, contact us if you would like to be on that. We've already heard from some people, so that's really cool. Just keep doing that if you're interested. And if you entered already last time we did it, you would like to re-enter for this time, then please re-enter. We also have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.